WCLN 1170 Radio and Star Communications Channel 16 proudly present the We Should Know Show, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative. Now, here's your host, J.W. Simmons, as we consider closely what we should know.
Welcome back. We Should Know is on the air. I'm J.W. Simmons, your host. Thank you for being with us. Each and every week, we bring you information and education, hopefully, that will help you not only get through today, but as some folks have told me, sometimes it changes the path of their life. Hopefully, this might be one of those days. We're talking with Nelson Powell. Nelson, thank you for being with us.
Glad to be here, J.W.
Nelson, I want to just kind of cover a little bit about who you are. I know a lot of folks know you. You've been in the community for years, grew up in Sampson County as part of generation that I was in, I think, and that's a farm boy generation, down in the area of the county in the Taylor's Bridge area, and still have, contact with the farm down there and still involved in the farm. The thing that strikes me is, you're senior vice president, agriculture and commercial lending at First Bank and Trust Company, and you have over 20 years of experience in agriculture banking. I wanted to make sure I read that exactly correct, because that to me is huge given the subject we're going to be talking about today. You literally have lived it, you're part of it, and now you're helping other people live that dream.
That's my passion.
And clearly it is. A graduate of North Carolina State University with a degree in agriculture, agribusiness, marketing, global leadership development, and banking graduate, recent graduate of North Carolina Leadership Forum through Duke University. And a lot of times I don't get into a lot of the details with folks as I just did you, but I want folks that may not know you to understand that you've got a deep history steeped in agriculture, and you're still helping people deal with, expand, and grow in ag in North Carolina.
I just hope, JW, the ones that know me will keep watching.
Hey, I'm looking to expand my audience, so that's the reason you're here. I want to start today with something that has come out recently. It's called NC Ag Leads, and it's a strategic plan. We're going to be putting this on the screen for you today, so you can actually have the link to get to this report. It's a 68-page report, and one of the things that strikes me with this, Nelson, not only are you aware of that plan, but you were intricately involved in the development of the plan. You were one of 7 people that was what I call, there's a lot of people involved in this plan. So I don't want folks to think it was just 7. There was a lot of people involved. But those 7 people, you kind of remind me of the old days when you had croppers in the field. You were part of the people that was actually making this happen, gathering the information, putting it together, things that were relevant and things that folks need to know about ag. I'm going to ask you a question here in a minute. I want to get to this. $110+ billion industry for North Carolina. Why is this report important? Why should people scurry out and read it? Even folks that are not involved in ag, and even folks that maybe don't live on the rural landscape. Help us understand how strategically important this plan is.
Sure, JW. Well, in case Troxler's watching, he would want to catch that extra billion. It's $111 billion to be exact. Billion. But the strategic plan came about for North Carolina based on a conversation from a Golden Leaf board member, Don Flo, that owns Flo Automotive. And he asked, did ag have a strategic plan for 5 years and 10 years? Mm-hmm. Being the business mindset he is, he expected us to have something. But across the commodity groups, across the support groups and the stakeholder groups, we didn't have anything on paper, that is. Mm-hmm. So many of the groups work independently. And we said, hey, this is an opportunity to come together and culminate. And as you said, I was one of the crew leaders, as we co-named it. And there were hundreds, probably even thousands of people involved on cross-sector interviews, focus groups, war games, meetings, Imagine Ag Day 2.0, to come together and put a strategic plan in place that identifies the opportunities that exist in ag for areas that we can all work on and understand better, and go forward with something that we'd probably have, stakeholders coming together for years and years to try to modify, create, change. It's a living, breathing document. The last thing we wanted to wind up with was a coffee table book. We wanted something that folks could pick up and see that NC Ag changes daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. We've got to look at it on a basis of how can we take that information as the average citizen in North Carolina who's involved in ag, the one who's just moved here and knows nothing about it, the one who's 9 generations deep and lives it and breathes it every day. How is it going to move forward, and what can we play in our part, whether it be political, whether it be personal, whether it be business? How can we move that chess piece forward continually and put it on the map of saying, this is something that's our biggest economic driver in North Carolina. And here in Sampson, Duplin County, we recognize that immediately in other counties. But is it prevalent in other places in the state? And do people really know just how important an economic driving factor that is to the state? And the answer a lot of times is maybe or even no. And so that's why the creation of NC Ag Leads was put together to culminate that and move it forward.
One of the things that strikes me too, we were talking about that $111 billion industry. Over time, that has increased. I recall some years ago having Steve Troxler on, and we were talking about the multi-billion-dollar industry. But that industry just continues to increase in its growth and the wealth base for North Carolina. Is that something that, from your position, you see continuing to grow going forward?
Absolutely. I mean, ag in North Carolina will continue to grow substantially over the years to come because we have such a strategic location when it comes to the ag industry and our weather. We have, North Carolina is one of the most diverse agricultural states in the United States. A lot of times when people come and visit, they have no idea just how much diversity exists. And we have ag moving in here. We naturally think of integrators. And of course, that's a main economic vein line, but we also have blackberries and blueberries. We have vegetable production. Look to the western part of the state. I mean, pumpkins and Christmas trees. We have one of the largest Christmas tree producers in the world in North Carolina. And then, as we move south and east, we go into aquaculture. That seems kind of relatively small when we look at the seafood industry in other states, but it's growing at such a rapid pace in North Carolina. Why? We have the marketing channels, we have the interstates, we have the distribution, and we have the knowledge. Also, we have the weather and the coastline. There's so many things in North Carolina agriculture that escape us, even people who live and breathe it every day. Yeah. So it will continue to grow at an exponential rate.
Well, and one of the reasons I understand that this report was done and collectively took a considerable amount of time to put together with all the folks involved, including Farm Bureau and others that were involved in this report, what I call critical organizations to make it happen. It's easy enough to read and look at that anybody can pick this thing up and look at it. You and I were talking before we went on the air. When folks, I'll say to the audience out there, when you get this report or put it up on your computer and look at it, you'll start flipping through it and you'll start seeing pictures that remind you of everything from chickens to the farm landscape to plants being grown. But you will also then see the verbal content that brings your attention to that moment, as we just talked about. $111 billion? Really? Because most folks don't do that. Is it because it is so diverse that people don't see it from a one window thing? They don't see all the other windows?
Well, I would say that probably when folks pick up anything to do with ag in North Carolina, even the Ag Leads plan, we would look at it from the perspective that we know our personal knowledge, but maybe we don't know beyond that boundary because we don't know it exists. And so when we look at these different channels that have moved into our state and the opportunities that they've created, what we wanted to do was liken that to having something available where people could actually see the diversity in the state. It's one of the toughest banking regulatory states for ag because we have so much diversity. There's not any one thing that we can look at a farmer in North Carolina and say, that's their main crop. Most people are row crop and have livestock and have other things that share their income, and nothing's over the 25 or 30% mark, which makes it such an interesting place to farm because we do have so much diversity. But the average citizen outside of ag, and even some who are laboring in ag each day, may not know that fact.
I think, and a lot of things as we're going through this conversation today, I want folks to remember too, oftentimes we're looking for why people are moving here, why we're seeing large increases in numbers of folks in North Carolina. Do you feel like that the diverse landscape that we offer here is part of that attraction?
I do. Well, first of all, I just think North Carolina is paradise on earth. So who wouldn't want to move here? Mm-hmm. But if you look at the landscape that we have and just the adaptability that North Carolina offers to folks, mountains and the beach, of course, but look at what we drive through every day. Look at the fields. Think about the clean rivers and streams that we have, some of the most pristine in the United States, maybe even the world, and look at the amount of animal agriculture we have. It's noticeable to us because we know it's there, but for the average citizen, they don't even know it's there. And we get a lot of mispress, but this is a great place to live, and folks recognize it, and they look at this and say, I want to be there. And there's lots of other reasons, economic reasons that exist as well, but I think ag is a major player in why people choose to move here. Just go to the farmer's market on Saturday in any one of our farmer's market networks. Look at people, educational opportunity, conscious choice to be there. They're passing ag as they know it to their next generation. What a wonderful thing to see.
Nelson, I think I could probably spend a couple of hours, you and I talking about your background and your experience and how you ended up in the banking situation and ag. When we come back from this break, I want to circle back and hit some of those high points about this strategic plan. And I want to leave that door open in this conversation where you feel like there's something you want to add to this fire of conversation we're building. I kind of look at things sometimes like a campfire. If you want to throw another log on it, let's do it. But this is so critical and so important. I think it's something we're going to try to look at, doing a continuation on and to expand. So we're going to take a break. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned. We're talking with Nelson Powell about a critical and important part of your environment, of your world, and that's agriculture. You live today for ag. We'll see you back in a moment.
Welcome to Cork and Brew Roseboro, where you can enjoy your favorite coffee, fraps, smoothies, bakery items, sandwiches, and select beer and wines while reconnecting with friends and family. Sit down and enjoy the experience. Come on by and give us a try.
This year, when you get together with friends, we hope you have a great time. Just remember to drink responsibly and know your limits.
Let me have your keys.
And always have a safe way home. Enjoy responsibly and always plan ahead.
At the Reedy Mark, we take pride in a unique, distinguished customer experience. We specialize in handcrafted cocktails, allocated bourbons, as well as gourmet signature food items exclusive to our menu at the Reedy Mark in Roseboro.
Looking for training that leads to a high-demand, high-paying career? Bladen Community College can help you get there. Enroll in our welding program and gain the skills and expertise needed to excel in the industry and secure a successful future. Explore our HVAC program, where you will learn to install and service energy-efficient systems to keep homes and businesses comfortable year-round. Learn more at bladencc.edu or give us a call to get started today.
The average American household has 17 devices connected to the internet. With more and more devices able to get online, you may need to increase your internet speed. Call Star Communications today and let us help you select the package that's right for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us today. Again, my name is J.W. Simmons. The name of the show is We Should Know. And we're talking with Nelson Powell. Nelson would give you introduction a while ago. You've got an extensive background, family farm right here in Sampson County, down in Taylor's Bridge area. Folks don't know where that is. They need to get on 421, drive south. They're going to easily see it very quickly. But the reality is that you also have a huge background in your relationship with ag on the commercial basis as far as lending. The organizations that you have worked with and are currently working with now are deeply steeped in agriculture. I want to kind of start this process of talking a bit about some of those areas that are strategically important for folks to know about ag. And I'm just going to kind of toss that to you to kind of open that door and in your mind, in your experience, tell us what you would like folks to know that oftentimes you see on a daily basis they might not see.
Sure. Well, one of the things that we created at NC Ag Leads, and I'll give credit where credit's due to that team, Laura Killian, Ray Starlin, and Sarah Gray Stone Lee, they put an acronym together, HARVEST, appropriate to ag and easy to remember, and it identifies some of the key areas that we needed to focus on. H stood for harmonize land resources, and that's one of the key areas that even in Sampson, Duplin, Bladen, counties that we're concerned about as, you know, townships encroach, opportunities for residential development move in, we have to be aware and cognizant that that natural resource is a limited basis. And so we tried to figure out how can we incentivize and entice people across the state of North Carolina, second generation landowners, generational landowners that are removed and maybe live somewhere else in the U.S. How can we have those people as concerned about the commitment to stay in ag as the generational farmer who's farming the land? And quite honestly, that is a huge challenge that's only going to be tackled by a lot of honest conversations about revenue production from the land. So one of the things that they came up with is instead of long-term commitments to conservation easements or ag district easements, is doing something on a shorter term basis that would help somebody to not make a lifetime definitive decision with that resource, but maybe make a 5, 7, or 10 year decision on, can we keep it in ag? It makes sense. And it gives me options to keep it in ag on my timeline. So that's some of the things in that harmonized land resources that they came up with. There was many other great ideas.
Right.
But that was just one that I think was most important, is how do we catch that person who doesn't know anything about ag and comes into ownership of that land? A lot of times fractionally with siblings or aunts or uncles or other folks like that. And then how do we address the person who's in ag and who's been farming but maybe has some peripheral tracts that are not as productive, or things that they need to look at maybe for other resources? How do we appeal to both those audiences?
An example of what you're talking about strikes me as I was talking with a farmer a while back, and he was telling me he had some property that he had been renting and to tend crops on. And all of a sudden, the person that owned the property said, you know, I'm not going to be able to rent that to you again. And the reason was they had been offered a huge amount of money to put a solar farm.
Sure.
And I guess all that's good, but what I hear you saying is you got to be able to balance that, and the validity of that is not all of a sudden just, well, I'm going to get more money there, because that then impacts everything else.
Right. You've got to look at the short-term and long-term impacts. And at the end of the day, it's a math equation for most people. We have to work backwards through that math equation and make it an opportunity for those individual landowners to stay engaged in ag. And that's just the simple part of it. The next part of it would be that's align technology. Technology and farmers, typically when we think of it, probably don't cross lines as often as we would think, but they live in unison. I mean, crawl into the tractor today, crawl into the combine, everything you do is on a computer. And so how do we get what the farmer needs and wants aligned with what's being produced and put out by these software companies and the equipment manufacturers? And we find that space in between extremely difficult to navigate, because these folks over here are designing something based on what they know and what they understand. These folks are consuming it over here based on what they are available to get. These folks over here need to be a driver in that tech. And so one of the main things that came out of the discussion, two great folks led that conversation who are deeply involved in ag tech in North Carolina. We're blessed to have them, Catherine Drake Stowe and Paul Urack. But they want to put an accelerator together and make these software companies and these other folks accessible to the farmers. And that accelerator would involve on-farm testing and have farmers say, this is what I need. This is the product that I desire. And how do you provide that? You put them together and give them a stake in it. And so, I mean, it's really exciting stuff to me that you take that accelerator in North Carolina and you take farmers and software designers and equipment designers and all those folks and you put them together, and what you walk away with is something that's actually going to get utilized and have input from the direct producer.
And that's an education process that you're saying it needs to be done, because the technology piece is not going away.
Oh, without a doubt. It's not. And, you know, I listen a lot of times. The most prevalent things we have today as an ag banker is data. You can bring me anything you want to from records, whether it be from the USDA FSA office, your fertilizer records, your crops, yields coming in from combines. You can bring all that stuff. We can track prices. We can track fluctuations in commodity markets for held inventory. We can have all those things, but if we don't use that data, it's worthless. And so a lot of times farmers have all these things available and they don't feel comfortable using all of it because they don't know who's tracking it and who's using it.
Do you think that, just talking about this piece, technology specifically, that the more we can get out information-wise to a larger population, that we might have folks say, wait a minute, did you just say you use technology? Did you just say that's important? Because people sometimes get caught in that mentality, again, where we grew up, of the old mentality of farming, but now young people need to step into that arena and think about it. This is futuristic ag. We're there. It's not like we're getting there. We're already there.
Oh, no, we're there. I mean, clients and farmers all the time operate irrigation equipment from their telephone. They can pull up and tell you about any piece of equipment, any greenhouse they have.
Drone technology
for spreading and spraying. I mean, it's here. And if we're not embracing it, we're already 10 years behind. So that portion of it is something that I hope the general public will understand about ag. It's not only one of the most risky and complicated professions on earth. Now it's one where you have to be an expert in so many things. And if you're not going to be the cutting edge it's going to take to make it to the next generation of your farm.
Do you think that our community colleges and universities are applying enough effort in that area to educate people on the technological advancement of farming and agriculture?
I think North Carolina has one of the best and most advanced networks of university in-depth training, not just classroom time learning about it, but actual labs and on-farm application without a doubt. NCA&T, North Carolina State University, University of Mount Olive, our community college network is one of the most willing to get out and get dirty and really get in the trenches with it. And they have a huge network of folks who've embraced that in my mind. They've got some of the best professors and department heads, and the funding has been provided to them and hopefully will continue by our state to continue to train that next generation to come in.
Just a quick question, as it relates to technology, you communicate with, on a regular basis, folks from multiple state landscape and talking with people. What would you say related to the technology piece here that you would think needs to be done? We got a couple of minutes here before we go to break, but what do you think needs to be done to add to that specifically for North Carolina and maybe it's just southeastern North Carolina? For the university network? For the university network to the community college network, what could they do to enhance that relationship of technology to the farming community?
I think probably one of the things that would really incorporate it is if they had a link with the actual equipment manufacturers and software developers. There's been a recent program that was done for ag business marketing at North Carolina State University, where they actually brought in equipment dealers and presented real-time problems to college students. Mm-hmm. And they were asked to solve it, develop the solution, do the background research, and then also develop a marketing plan on how to market that and get it to the audience there. I think programs like that are essential. Mm-hmm. You've got to not only have the challenge, but you've got to have something that interests the farmers in that generation to buy into it as a solution. And so I think the community college network and the university network we have here in North Carolina recognizes that and has put guardrails around it to keep those programs safe and to keep people engaged and involved in it, not only for what it can do for our state, but what it can do for the individual who has that curiosity, and also for the one who doesn't know they have that curiosity yet, to buy into it and be part of that generation.
Absolutely.
If you think about, I think about things in terms of seasons. Mm-hmm. We don't have that many seasons in our lifetime of farming to make an impact. The average person, maybe 50 or 60 crop seasons. Yeah. That's pretty definitive Absolutely. To make a difference and move the needle.
Absolutely. And then the other plus that adds to that as well as our corporate extension agents and our corporate extensions in the counties throughout the state with North Carolina State University has just made a tremendous impact because we've got a go-to place. We can pick that phone up and talk to a specialist about something. Or even if you're thinking about gardening, we've got that capability right here. So when we come back from this break, I want to kind of move on down to the list here, this whole idea of reinforcing farm and the support systems. I see what you do as one of those support systems, a critical support system, being able to work with farmers on the financial piece that they often need. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're talking with Nelson Powell. We're talking about things that's critically important to you. You may see it in your grocery store, but you may not understand in North Carolina. You may not be far from it being grown in the field. We'll be right back.
At Fisher's, it's not just about fashion. It's about exceptional service. Experience top-notch customer care and find your perfect look. Visit Fisher's today and feel the difference. Looking to refresh your home? At Clinton Appliance and Furniture, we've got everything you need to create the perfect space. We're here to help make your house a home with stylish furniture, appliances, flooring, design services, delivery, and repair. Visit ClintonAppliance.com to explore our selection or visit us at 401 Northeast Boulevard in Clinton. Shop local. Shop smart. Shop Clinton Appliance and Furniture.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thanks for being with us. The show is coming along now to the point that we've reached that halftime period. And as we come back for our next segment, we're going to try to get a lot of information in for you today. Our guest is Nelson Powell, a groundswell of information. We're talking about a strategic plan that's just been put out here in North Carolina. We're looking at some of the details. Granted, we will not be able to get into all of those. However, please call a friend, tell them to tune in, if nothing else, for this last part of the show, and pick up on it. And I always want to hear from you. So keep reaching out to me and email me, or Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina. Just put WSK for We Should Know. I'll get it. If you have a comment, if you want to reach out to me like a lot of folks does at one of the stores or as traveling around here, I'm constantly getting comments from people. Nelson, I want to thank you for being with us today and taking time. I know you're a busy guy, and this is a subject that is near and dear to your heart. You were going through some of the things that we need to look at, and we touched on a number of those, and I want to kind of get back on track for you. And one of the things was support systems for ag. There was other stuff that we need to try to get in. I want you to just take that ball and run it downfield, if you will, and see if we can at least score some points today as it relates to educating and informing people.
Sure, JW. Well, the resources part of it is something that group chose to focus on extension, which is vital to the existence of ag in our state, and the continual learning model that we have. We've done so well with it historically, but there's a lot of room for opportunity. And that focus group really took time to key in with not only the extension folks and the universities, but the actual end user and producers. And then went even a step further to talk about, where is that program led from? Is it led from NCDA? Is it led from the university level? So they really have some hard questions to answer there. A lot of work to be done, a lot of opportunity to really impact that extension model across our state. I think it's interesting that one of the things that we keyed in on as we looked at that model was the peripheral jobs that impact ag in our state. Some of those things being things that we just take for granted. Surveyors, for instance. The entry point to being a surveyor today across the United States, it's almost impossible to get that. You have to have a 4-year degree in surveying now, I understand, to be a surveyor. You have to have an apprenticeship. And to get into that, you have to have somebody to work as an apprentice with, which is very difficult to find those folks. And we see 45 to 90-day delays in doing real estate transactions now because of surveying. Another would be, you need to have somebody to appraise things who understands ag in general, but just understands the landscape of real estate. Try to get an appraiser now and get it done within a reasonable amount of time that most would consider historically. It's impossible. And the average age, much like farmers in North Carolina, the average age of appraisers would be somewhere in the late 60s. So we have a real need to develop some of those peripheral job and career pipelines to keep us going just in ag. Things that we just don't normally think about fall within that resource, not just the extension program, but other professions as well.
And while you're saying that, folks need to, I think, really kind of formulate a different mindset when you're talking about farms and farm-related appraisals. It's different than just a house, or, going out with, a half acre of land and a house on it. It's a whole different process for appraising and surveying.
Sure. Well, I mean, we'll go to ag banking, ag lending. We have probably one of the best organizations in the United States as far as Farm Credit. Farm Credit is the institution that has really aligned most of our ag bankers that we have to be who they are. It's given them the background. It's given them the education. Most ag bankers and ag lenders that I've worked with over the last 21 years started out at Farm Credit, as I did. I was there for 10 years. It gave us that depth. I worked with folks back then who had been through the 80s. They taught me in a way that nobody can teach inside of a classroom. They used to tell me there's a difference between teaching and training. And I was trained on the job by those folks. And now I feel like a dinosaur. It's difficult to find an ag banker who not only understands the mechanics of ag, but also understands the risk profiles and models that exist. And I find that a lot of folks that I visit with when I go and speak at colleges, they're looking for something completely different in their mind of what an ag banker would look like. We're not in the building, we're in the field. And so I think that's another area. Ag accounting. Try explaining your business to an accountant. if they don't understand the ag model. We're so blessed in so many places in our state to have people who are specialized in those areas and understand ag on a broad spectrum basis. And so that resource that they've got and they've identified in there deals with so many things just outside of what we think of. We want to keep farmers in business, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of other professions that the existence of farming in North Carolina depend on that we also have identified, and we need to keep those pipelines managed as well.
When you talk about those things, that's the thing that strikes me is that also could be an impediment for younger people looking at getting into ag or even considering ag, the overwhelming amount of money it requires, the overwhelming amount of money investment it requires. Is that something that we need to educate people more on, is that it's an okay industry because it's not going anywhere? It's not like a manufacturing plant decides to shut down and everything's gone. Ag is going to have to be here if we're going to eat.
Without a doubt, JW, I think one of the things that I enjoy most about meeting with farmers of all ages is they have a story, and the majority of it involves their real estate and how they arrive where they're at. Typically, they've built something on that family land that they don't want to let go of. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them have children who've decided to go other places and pursue different career paths. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, it creates a chasm. What do they do with that asset? How do they continue that family legacy? And that involves many times passing it on to somebody who's not within the family. However, they've got that same passion and desire to be here, be in ag, and sustain it. So how do you navigate through that? There's so many different ways, like leases. There's so many different programs that exist through USDA and FSA that will allow somebody who's got limited capital walking into the situation, but they have the knowledge, they have the know-how, they have the work ethic, and they have the passion, they just don't have the capital. It's almost impossible for somebody starting from ground zero today to walk in and get into any type of farming operation, whether it be row crop, whether it be integrated livestock, or whether it be something they're just wanting to create that's something new through agritourism. Mm-hmm. It's a difficult thing to embrace, and there's so many programs out there that the public absolutely needs to know about. We need to make sure the right people know about it. We utilize it all the time, as do a lot of other ag bankers. And so it's something that can help move that needle forward. As we look at the average age of the farmer across North Carolina, we recognize that something needs to occur quickly. And I think most integrators have embraced that and been very willing to design contracts and other things that are within their sphere of influence to attract, maintain, and pass forward to younger generations. And I think commodity groups are just coming along with that as well and catching up to the point.
We're probably not going to be able to touch on everything that I wanted to get to today. And one of the things we talked about before we went on air today is ag is so large, and the sheer volume of that landscape would require a continuation of a series of training programs. And you know, we're looking for ways that we can push that information out. The segments that you see in agriculture now, you've talked about technology, you talked about those kinds of things that fit financial demands, the workforce demand. However, it is continuing to be automated in many ways, and that's helping the landscape. Continue that line of thought as we look at some of these other areas, and you talked a bit about the value and the mindset of how do I understand what I have. I think there's a lot of people out there that maybe not realize, you know, what a value asset they have, and some of them has just been handed that from a previous generation.
Sure, absolutely. I think along that same line of thinking, JW, is when you get a group together in a room, whether they be agribusiness owners or farmers or even stakeholders inside an ag community, when we think about business value mindset, we immediately trip over to profitability.
Yeah.
And we need to draw that line. All the time, ag is not profitable. I mean, as an ag banker, things ebb and flow, and you have to be prepared for the good times and the bad times. You know, as one of my mentors used to tell me, it's not the decisions you make in the bad times that get you. It's the decisions you make in the good times that help sustain you through those challenging times. With somebody who owns an asset that's got to pass that forward, those things have to be held in mind. What impacts the price of it? Influx of people, interest rate environment, income flow, timing is everything. And so when we see people who own those major assets try to figure out what to do with it, it is one of those places where you literally have to get a table and put people at the seats at the table. You need a really good accountant, you need a really good attorney, and you need a really good ag banker to help you navigate and make some of those decisions, because you're missing so many pieces that you can't read about. You've got to have somebody who's got that experience and who sees the changing landscape and understands how to quickly identify those things.
And the other thing that strikes me as we're talking about these issues today is that there is a significant amount of farmland out there that folks are looking for. And I'm sure you see this throughout the states you look at, but they're looking for development areas and a golf course, 200 homes and those kinds of things. Well, that does away with the production of food. That does away with the profitability piece of having something that folks demand and have to have. So when we come back, just touching on some things on the last part of this show, I want to just kind of open that door for you and say, let's hit some of the high points with what you see in your windshield, in the position you're in, that we really need to be concerned about. It can be part of this strategic plan. It can be things that Nelson Powell sees. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned.
Providing fewer commutes, more backyard offices, and crystal clear meetings. Providing less, you froze up, and more presence in your presentations. Providing a better internet experience. Providing possible.
We find in life that some things just go together. Like peanut butter and jelly, cheese and crackers, steak and potatoes, and of course, milk and cookies. But the bottle and the throttle are never a good combination. Be smart. Be safe. Be responsible. Don't drink and drive.
Join us for the Alive After 5 Summer Concert Series, presented by the Sampson Arts Council, the City of Clinton, and the County of Sampson. Captivating audiences with each note, chord, and soulful lyric, it's Carl Newton's Review, sharing their unique blend of R&B, Motown, jazz, and soft rock with a touch of country. One night only, Thursday, June 26th at 6 p.m. at the Clinton City Market in downtown Clinton. Visit AliveAfter5ClintonNC.com for more information. See you there!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're coming up on the last part of the show today. My name is J.W. Simmons. The name of the show is We Should Know. We're coming to you on Star Communications TV, Channel 16, 2:30 on Tuesdays, replayed at 7 p.m. Tuesday, Thursday, each and every week. We are also simulcast on WCLN radio at 2:30 on Tuesdays. We encourage you always to let folks know when we're on the air, talking about things that impact you on a daily basis, that it's important for all of us to know. We consider this show an information education show. And today is one of those days that we have somebody with us that is really informing, educating us on this whole new world of agriculture that's been here, Nelson Powell, for a long time, but it's changing format, and the design and the playing field is changing radically. And we have to understand that this strategic plan, the North Carolina strategic plan, Ag Leads, $111 billion industry in North Carolina, growing, I might add, has got to be looked at not only as an asset, but in a way that we understand it. So the last part of the show today, I want to kind of just open the door and say, those things you see in your position as a banker, multiple states here, focused on ag, and being part of the development of this strategic plan, make sure we hit those vital points as much as we can in this last part.
Sure. Well, JW, I think 21 years in ag banking, and prior to that, history with integrators, USDA, NRCS, and private business ownership. I think the last year and a half to 2 years is probably some of the most uncomfortable times I've ever had in agriculture. And I say that with a lot of empathy to the people that I meet with on a daily basis. Ag is on rocky ground when it comes to profitability right now. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are having to make difficult decisions with generational assets. And it's hard to recognize that we're not plowing new ground. Folks who came before us have plowed this same ground, but it's been a long time. Mm-hmm. You know, when we think about just the micro environment of interest rates, my entire lending career has been subprime interest rates. It was easy to be an ag banker. I'm not saying anybody could, but you could make decisions that just didn't go wrong. Mm-hmm. Now that we're facing higher interest rates, lower commodity prices, mm-hmm. and more challenging economic times as far as increasing in inflation, it takes a special person to navigate that. And you've got to have a good team to help navigate it. And so when I sit and meet with folks who are making long-term decisions or short-term decisions with generational assets, it can be a mental health issue for them, as well as their team that surrounds them. And so, you know, I know you've got a lot of farmers that tune in and listen. This is a difficult thing for them to navigate. And they recognize that they wake up to it every morning and they go to bed to it every night. And they're trying to figure it out as best they can. They've raised children. They have spouses. They've got extended family members who count on them. They've got a labor force that counts on them. Many of those people who come here every year become family members with them. They're making decisions individually that impact dozens, sometimes hundreds of people. The pressure is always on them. They're in a pressure cooker. And when you sit and you meet with these folks and they're trying to figure out how to navigate it, the only thing you can do is listen, learn, and help. And when folks are put in that position, which many of them are right now, they're doing the best they know how with the information they have and the knowledge they have. But as we look back over the generations, folks have had to make similar decisions. Did they pack up and move and come here? You wound up here in North Carolina at some point because somebody made a decision to do something different than we've always done. And that is really scary. Mm-hmm. But I see people moving into North Carolina agriculture from other countries, from Texas, from California, from Oregon, from South Carolina. We have an advantageous market here for a lot of different reasons. And people look at their own personal challenges wherever they may be, and they decide to come to North Carolina and put down roots and buy a farm and grow integrated livestock. Well, we're here. We're making decisions with the information we have. You know, there's a lot of dairies within this state who've decided, hey, I should do something different. And they liquidate their land, shut down their dairy operation, and move it to another portion of our state. Sometimes down here in our area, Sampson, Duplin, Bladen County, sometimes to other states. You have to be in agriculture at a point where you recognize that your heritage and your background of being here is not a right. It's a privilege. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we can't continue it the way it's always been done. And we have to make changes. And those changes are hard. Those changes come with consequences, and difficult decisions are made. Sometimes that involves curtailing family living expenses, doing away with things you've always done. And those are hard things to face. When you're from a family farm and you've established a lifestyle, those things really impact how you view yourself, how your neighbors view you. But I think North Carolinians need to understand that as farmers and agriculturalists, there's folks navigating things right now that are the first time they've had to navigate in multiple generations. And they don't have that relevance from leaning on somebody who's been through it to ask. As an ag banker, I don't. I can look back and hearken to some of the people that trained me and things they left me with, and they lived through the 70s and 80s. But most of them are not still with us. And so I can't pick up the phone and call them and say, how do you navigate this? And so I just have to lean on folks who've been through similar experiences and try to figure out how we do navigate it.
And it sounds like it's on a daily basis. And I'm so glad you mentioned that word too. This does affect the mental health capacity of the landscape of agriculture, because, as we know, worry and agonizing over things that, quote, you can't fix, or not knowing who to call. One of the things you mentioned earlier is calling on people that understood real estate, that could do appraisals or could do surveying. They're not there. The electricians are also getting very diminished in this state. Heavy equipment courses is being offered by the community college and other places in the state. And people are turning away from those jobs, but yet they're the most lucrative jobs around. Same thing with farming. If, to your point, if someone's willing to step up and take the risk, there comes the benefit. But if you don't take the risk and consider the only thing I want to do is go to work for 6 hours or 8 hours and get off and go home and I don't want to think about it anymore. To your point, farming, you live it, you breathe it.
There is no break from it. And I would say that the majority of my communications on a daily basis, very little of it is about ag finance. Most of it is about decisions that impact families and impact their line of business that are things that most people would never even consider. Those are the items that are on farmers' minds, and the things that we've tried to address in this NC Ag Leads plan are some of those challenges, not a comprehensive list. Mm-hmm. We could never develop a comprehensive list because they change so often. Mm-hmm. Different things come in the radar and out of the radar so quickly, sometimes we never even have opportunity to identify them. But farmers are some of the most complex and well-adapted people that I've ever met in my life. And they have this ability to navigate through the important high points, but they need folks around them to talk to. And they need to understand that somebody is empathetic with them and feels it at the level they do to help navigate those decisions. I heard somebody say one time, it's not what you said and it's not what you did. Those things are going to be forgotten, but it's how you made somebody feel. Mm-hmm. And we have to remember that when we navigate life with farmers and with other folks involved in ag, is they feel at a level I'm not sure anybody could define. Mm-hmm. Webster sure couldn't put it in his dictionary.
Right.
We have to be at a level with them where we actually understand how they're making decisions, why they're making decisions, and what are the resources that are available to them, and just be that resource.
Nelson, it strikes me as going through the show today and listening to some of your commentary that you recognize you're not only a banker to lend money, but you're also a counselor. And I got the feeling that deep down you could probably give us example after example that your counsel was needed to just help people make it through the next season.
Right. Well, I certainly don't want to take on that persona. I care about people. And for every 20 people I talk to, I probably bank one or two of them. I'm inadequate in the category of being considered a counselor, but I just care about people. And this is a trying time. And sometimes people just need a listening ear. They don't need advice. They don't need to know what you know particularly. Mm-hmm. They just need to know that somebody heard what they had to say and understood it, even if they couldn't do anything about it.
Well, that fits perfectly with the plane and the format of this show, and to let folks know that you're accessible, you're available to discuss these issues. And I think the big piece of counseling always has been for me is to first, you can't be a counselor unless you have a passion and feeling for others. And certainly you do that well. And we're going to attempt to make sure we get your contact information posted. You're going to continue to be part of this strategic plan. As it's pointed out in this plan on page 16, this is an ongoing thing in process. You've put together a lot of the elements, but I think you pointed out clearly going forward in the future, there's going to be some changes. There's going to be some things happening.
100%, JW. I think to put it down in a concise phrase, the farmer's hope is the envy of the world. Most of them are eternal optimists, and that's the only reason they survive. And it's something that you can't define, you can't create. I'm just proud to be a part of that and thankful for the opportunity that I get daily to deal with that caliber of folks.
Well, from one farm boy to another, I've just been blessed to grow up on a farm and be here today and interview folks like you.
Thanks, JW.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being with us. We look forward to seeing you again each and every week, and continue to reach out to us. And as always, may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.